Hello again, guys. It's me, the Good Mage. Alright, tonight we're going to be reading chapter 2. So this time, because someone asked me to, dressed up for it, wearing my trench coat, wearing some merchandise, got my hat on, even got a staff. Not sure what's inside. Pretty much useless in here. I just killed a lot of us if I used it in here. Anyway, that's me tonight. Going to be reading chapter 2 of the Good Mage. Chapter 2. Complicated Relations. I often refer to before and after magic. This is solely for the benefit of the reader. In truth, there is no before as such. With magic has come a long and written history spanning several worlds and many thousands of years. However, the history of the magicless world is also written. Neither are any more or less real, and almost everyone alive at the time holds some memories of both eras. Although for me, I have very little memory of what I did in the magical world before this day. Yet I do hold the experience of several lifetimes that I have lived before. I have an in-depth knowledge of the magic I use and as much understanding of the creatures that exist now as I do of those that lived in the pre-magical world. I take a step back from the lake's edge and brace myself for some horror of the catacombs. After several long moments of waiting, I peer back into the water, then jump back in alarm as a scaled head greater than the length of my body gracefully breaks the surface, followed by the long neck and shoulders of a fully grown ice dragon. I expect to be eaten then and there. Ice dragons aren't known for their tolerance of intruders. And judging by the lake, this one must have been hibernating. They can sleep for millennia, watching cities rise and fall in the planescapes of their minds. Wizard or no, I have little ability to deal with such a powerful creature. Hello, Solly. A familiar voice both rings in my ears and inside my head. It's a day for familiar differences. The voice is rich and sweet, soft and almost sensual, carrying the weight and strength of the dragon before me, but also humour, and perhaps a hint of compassion. I was wondering what you had become. You've hardly changed at all, my wife says casually. You shouldn't have awoken me, but I suppose you may not be alive when I wake on my own. She stretches her powerful neck from the water, sending icy droplets cascading down her spine. A smile, of sorts, replaces the reptilian, alien visage of her face. Are you here for a divorce? I stammer in surprise. No, I mean, what? I'm totally taken aback by all this. Even with historic memories, I hadn't realised how much could have changed. Esther chuckles a deep rumble, part laugh, part intolerance for my blundering speech. Calm yourself, wizard, for you are a wizard. The magic emanating from you is quite strong, but not strong enough, I'm afraid, to hold the interest in you I once had. Her mouth opens slightly, and I see a glimpse of razor-edged teeth, each over a foot long. You should leave me in peace now. It was good. Yes, good to see you. I had worried another dragon you may have become, but this suits you better. I have something of yours, however, and you have something of mine. She turns so swiftly that she appears as a silver flash and dives back into the depths. Something of yours? I ask into my mind. At this distance, a dragon of her size can read thoughts I don't even know I'm having. Your ring, fool. A spark of irritation flashes through. I leave nothing with the lesser races to link them to me. Wordlessly, I twist off my wedding ring, the only part of the old world that remains unchanged. And without the need for directions, flick it into the depths. Peace instantly washes over me. Joy from years now gone, and a flicker of images flashes before my eyes. Then they are gone, sinking into the lower depths of my once wife's realm. Sparks appear in the air, and a moment later, two items materialise on the bare stone before me. The first, I'm pleased to see, is my staff. The same twisted rod I had had before the change, but it now glows with an inner light and is topped with a shard of purple sapphire the size of my thumb. The second is about the size of an emu egg, but smooth and leathery to the touch. What's this? I asked the now empty cavern. Not what, who? Esther's impatience is obvious now. That is Boogit. Boogit was my other dog, smaller and far less likely to eat you than Flint. I'm keeping Flint, as he is useful to me, but you may have Boogit. Leave now. Take the other route out. There are remains in that tunnel that you may find of some use. Her presence fades, and I know better than to try my luck waking her again. I scoop up the egg and my staff and head around the lake to a slightly larger tunnel leading in the opposite direction than I had come. This tunnel seems far older than the one I entered through. After several metres, it widens into a bowl-like room containing various bits of detritus, single boots and dented helms, broken swords, all covered with cobwebs, evidence of looters who were unfortunate enough to stumble upon Esther's lair. I quickly search through the less organic remains. I find several coins and a small knife before spying a pack with travel gear and a sword, neither of which appear too damaged. I've had some practice with a blade. I was no master swordsman, but had always kept one in both worlds. It is a short, single-edged weapon designed as much for breaking through the undergrowth as actually battle. It has an elegant yet functional handle and is well weighted. I strap it to my back under my pack and move out of the rubbish-strewn room, heading slowly upwards towards a pinprick of light at the end of the tunnel. End of chapter 2. Alright, well, that was a little bit shorter than I expected, so I'm going to do chapter 3 as well. But can't wear the trench coat. Too freaking hot for the trench coat. You can deal with the hat. You can deal with the staff. Trench coat's too hot. Anyway, we'll do chapter 3. Chapter 3. Of Knights and Dames. The nature of the magic I use in my travels is far different than the learned magi of the more populated areas. They use incantations and ingredients to manipulate the pull of the magical ether for specific outcomes. Most steer clear of natural magic wielders such as me. We are known for the use of a far more chaotic and less controllable form of magic. Somewhat like the druids of the Tablelands, yet less in line with nature's balance. Our magic needs no words, but rather clear thoughts. It is often directed rather than controlled with the help of instruments such as staves, wands, and some of the more magical swords. The outcomes are never exactly as we envision, and sometimes highly destructive. Much like the learned magi, we have several schools of magic such as summoning, elemental manipulation, barrier creation, and destruction. There is also the study of each of the elements and their combinations. The introduction of alcohol or narcotics to our system often leads to interesting, dangerous, and entirely random results. I exit the long tunnel and take measure of my surroundings. I've left the first tunnel to my west and seem to have travelled several kilometres underground. The eucalypts are more scattered, and several have been logged in the recent past, but unusually there have been young saplings planted and nurtured in the stead of their fallen parent trees. It's the first sign of humanoid civilization that I've encountered, other than the beaten dirt track. But in a world teeming with many races both good and evil, this isn't necessarily a good sign. I hear loud voices and laughter from not far up the track, and for lack of a better option, set off as quietly as I can towards them. I slow my pace as a sickly scent pervades my nostrils. Death. As a user of nature's magic, I can sense life and death as readily as you can feel the change of temperature. Although often a curse, in this case it may have saved my neck. I peek carefully over a fallen trunk into a clearing where 6 men sit around a lit fire talking loudly. I would walk right in and greet them if it wasn't for that feeling. I take careful note of them. They don't carry themselves like woodsmen, and all are armed with more than axes. A bloodied broadsword rests on a stump next to what I thought was a man, and I now see is more of a forest crossbreed, part troll perhaps. His arms reach past his knees, and 2 fangs protrude from his lower jaw. The other men, for they are all men, are similarly armed, but far more human in appearance. I creep around the camp to find the source of my unease. It takes me several minutes to spy the bodies which have been stripped of clothing and crammed into the hollow of a fallen tree. Their skin is nearly translucent white. They have pointed ears and black eyes. They are of the white fae, magic humanoids of a good nature. They bridge the gap between humans' destructive nature and the elves' protective side, and have prevented many wars between the 2 races. They would have to be responsible for both the logging and the replanting of the trees. I can't count 4 adults, 3 males and 1 female, and a child. The wounds on their body are so recent that their blue blood still flows into the freshly turned earth. What sort of monsters kill fae? I mumbled to myself. I would shed a tear if it would help. White fae are the most peaceful of humanoid races. I can't remember a single instance where I've seen one so much as carry a weapon. With pity, I prepare to lower these poor people into the peaceful earth, but before I'm ready, a shout of challenge rises from the camp back down the trail, closely followed by the clash of steel and the call to arms. I dump my pack and rush back to the bandits, expecting that perhaps another of the fae has returned to find his family. What I see instead brings a flash of hope to my heart. A black-maned knight wearing gleaming plate armour has entered the clearing. He wields a broadsword in one hand as if it were a mere rapier. With one swing, he dismembers the first bandit to get in his way. The sheer force behind the swing cuts straight through the man's shield, arm and torso, leaving 2 bloody pieces where the murderous cat had just been. The troll man leaps for the knight's sword arm, pinning it to the ground, only to be lifted clear off the ground by the knight's free hand, clutching his face. The troll man shrieks in alarm, scrabbling at the knight's armoured gauntlet, trying vainly to break free. With a dark glare, the knight, rather than using his sword, simply strains his mighty arm and crushes the hapless creature's skull like a ripe fruit. He drops the limp thing and advances on the remaining 4 bandits. With more time to take stock of the situation, the remainders of the group pull heavy crossbows from the ground at their feet. I sigh. I was hoping to slip by without blood on my own hands, but I feel nothing but good from this huge man, and would dearly love some revenge for the fallen Fae. I leap out of cover, and with a cry I summon strength from the ether around me. The men turn and fire in one movement, but their bolts slow in the air and fall harmlessly to the ground beside me. With a manic grin and one tense movement of my staff, I concentrate on the ground beneath them. I had already the plan to bury the fallen woodsman, and think now of a fitting end without the need to bloody myself. With a loud thwomp and a shockwave that shudders trees all around, the ground sucks down around the men as if they had been in the necks of great straws. An instant later I seal them firmly in place, leaving only their noses and eyes protruding from the ground. "Solly!" a deep bellow behind me calls. I had forgotten the knight and turn now. The man stands a clear foot taller than I, and the same again in width. His sword, now sheathed, seems almost small at his side. His face is handsome, clean-shaven, with a strong jawline and dark brown eyes. Those eyes I know. "Mitchell?" I ask incredulously. Mitchell was my best friend, a thin young man of beautiful nature but low self-esteem. It seems magic has changed him to a far larger, more imposing form. "It's grand to see you," he announces loudly. He comes forward and lifts me off the ground with one arm, squeezing me tightly as you would a small child. "That was some fine handiwork you pulled there." He leans down and grins at the stricken villain buried near his feet. He cringes at the giant's smile. "So what are you then?" He folds his huge arms. "You a druid?" No, not a druid. Sort of a wizard," I say sheepishly. It isn't the most popular of arts to practice. Unlike learned magi, wizards of nature tend to be thought of as bringers of destruction by many settlements the world over, not without reason either. Mitchell stands back and rubs his stubbly chin. Didn't hear any words, and I didn't see you throw anything, which means you're one of them other wizards." I dread his next words. "That's fine by me." He grabs me roughly for another bone-snapping hug. "Come back to town with me. It's been a whole world since I've seen you. I'll send the garrison out for these pathetic creatures." He glances at the buried men with contempt. I run off to fetch my pack and bury the Fae. We then walk out of the clearing towards Mitchell's horse, a white stallion of epic proportion. It towers over me. I look at it skeptically. It stares back at me with interest. Creatures of good can sense me and usually like me. "What about you, Mitchy? A knight, eh?" He swings onto the horse with little effort and lifts me up with a jolt. "Hey," I complain, but can see little reason to argue. "Yep, beats the hell out of pushing trolleys. I've been helping this little town with their bandit problems and doing noble things to princesses." He winks. "Noble things to princesses?" I think to myself. "Like what? Spreading giant genes through the upper class?" I'm more than a little happy to see my friend, however, and grin stupidly but keep my comments to myself. We ride out onto a well-used and paved road and over a small rise. Below us lies a small township several kilometres away. From the number of houses, I estimate the population at around 1,000. A wide, deep river twists around the northern edge of the town. On the far shore, perhaps 2 kilometres across, tall grasslands of untamed floodplains stretch back to tall, dark mountains. "Welcome to Keln Snag." He waves his arm in a grand gesture. "Where would this princess of yours be?" I ask from the horse behind him. "Eh?" He laughs heartily. "Which one? There's the butcher's daughter and wife, the mayor's niece, and that nice girl who works down at the docks." He seems to lose himself in a daydream. "They're all princesses," he states calmly. "There was an actual king's daughter. Come down the river a few months ago. Nice enough girl, but not very passionate." The sun is getting low on the horizon as we enter town. "I better get to the garrison before something eats our friends out there," Mitchell tells me humorously. He leaves me at the front of a tavern with a few coins and instructions to find a table and wait for his return. The Fae family. We set up our camp as usual. It had been a productive day. My 2 older sons were wrestling as usual. I've told them violence is never a good thing, but being boys of their age, they never listen. My love, Monique, has gone to get water and should be returning soon. Sonia sits on my lap as I relax by the campfire. She's so full of life, such innocence. I worry for her future. for all of our futures in this world. Stuart says he thought he heard something from down the road. Probably some creatures of the wood, I tell him. Even the most aggressive of nature's beasts leave us be. Our work is important, and even a hungry spotted cat understands that. He is still insistent that there was something just out of camp. I hand him his sister and tell him I'll go check to ease his mind. I pick up my walking cane, enough to scare off a goblin or a wild dog if they stray too close. The morning sun is bright, and I feel cheerful as I wander towards the stream. I hope I catch my wife by surprise. She is always such a delight. I continue daydreaming. In the older days, we would have found more excuses to vanish into the woods alone. I suspect any more excuses and we would have had more children than we could handle. I chuckle at those fond memories. I reach the brook where Monique should be. Odd, I say to myself. The bucket is here, but she is not. I hear a scream from back at camp. I turn and run, my mind trying to calm my beating heart. Probably nothing. Boys bullying each other again. I know there is more to that scream. I round a big tree and see them. They have my family cornered. I rush in. Take what you like, I shout to them. We have little of value. The largest of them, a strange mix of creatures, turns and regards me with his bloodshot eyes. He smiles, then turns back and swipes his blade across my eldest's throat. I scream in horror, rush in. A black-fletched arrow thuds into my chest, sending me staggering back. The pain shocks me like icy water. The men laugh and I hear my daughter call out for a papa. I try to rise, but another arrow strikes me. The pain seems to fade, as does the bright sun. My limbs no longer respond. There is blood in my mouth. I look up one last time. The men and the last of my family are only dark blurs on the horizon. Then my memories fade. End of chapter 3. Well, it's a fun couple of chapters. What was the point of this bit of it? Oh yeah, to get you to buy my book, promote my book, and, get me out of normal, boring workplace situations. So, same as last time, that was the Good Mage, chapters 2 and 3. It's available on Amazon, eBay, through me, various shops in the town of Yamba. That's about it for the night, I think. I'm sure there was something else. Oh yeah, if you like my book, or if you've read my book, head on over to Goodreads and give me a review. It doesn't take long to sign up. I don't even know if you have to sign up. You just put your name and write a review. Good Mage, my Solly Stag Beetle.